If you've struggled to lose weight in the past, it's not your fault. And today I want to share with you how to turn your body's fat loss switch on. Hi, I'm Ross Bridgeford, the nutrition coach, author of the best-selling Alkaline Reset Cleanse book and my forthcoming book, The Alkaline Life. And today I want to share with you a slightly longer but really important, really powerful video training that I delivered for my private coaching group, The Alkaline Life Club. In this video, I'm going to explain the exact role that your endocrine system has. This is the system of organs and glands responsible for regulating all of your hormones. The role that has in supporting you losing weight, or if it's causing you to gain weight and hold on to it. I've written about this in loads of detail in the Alkaline Life book, but when you're overweight, it means that there is an imbalance in your body. There is always a reason that sits behind your weight gain. Your body, the reason your body has to create fat cells and hold on to them. Excess weight is a symptom of imbalance in your body. In my experience working with thousands and thousands of people over the last 20 years, especially women, there is always a role being played by your hormones. If we can find what this imbalance is and treat that imbalance and fix that imbalance with our diet and our lifestyle, the weight effortlessly falls away. And in this video, we're going to explore this and I'll share the steps with you that we can start to take to turn it around. Again, this is a coaching video that I delivered for my private coaching group, the Alkaline Life Club. This is the sort of training we get into every week and I hope you enjoy it. So why do we eat more than we need to eat? Why would we eat a meal and then go back for more? It's interesting, and if you've been trying to lose weight over any period of time, I've certainly been there. This happens to all of us, right? We weren't wired this way. Over history, humans have been adaptable to the fact that food was mostly scarce. For most of history, food was scarce. You know, when we came across food, we ate it, we gorged on it, we got as much of it as we could because we didn't know when the next meal was coming. And the human brain and the body, our systems, our processes have evolved over so long to be able to deal with this. We can go through long periods of starvation without dying. Different processes shut down, the body utilizes different sources of fuel within the body. It's not good for us, but we can cope, we can manage and we can survive. And then when the next meal comes along, we can eat and the process repeats. But that's not the modern world, is it? We've never before had such access to so many empty calories, processed foods that offer almost no nutritional density, but so much sugar, so much gluten, so many additives and chemicals. The foods are addictive, and our bodies and our brains are not able to cope with this. They've got no means and no mechanism to be able to say no. We're literally not hardwired to say no. We're hardwired to say yes and fuel and fill up as much as we can. This has become a real problem. A really interesting study that was done about 20 years ago, it's called the soup bowl study. So basically researchers put people into two groups. They put one group who had a soup bowl that was sneakily self-refilling. So every time someone had a couple of spoons of the soup, there was a little tube that went into the bottom and it just refilled the soup slowly back up to that level. And then people that just had a regular bowl of the soup. And what they found was that the people in the refilling bowl group ate substantially more than the people in the control group, because our brains saw that there was still loads left, so we just keep going. We tend to eat however much as we can, whenever we can. That's how we're hardwired. And this is why, if you have found yourself overeating, if you've got a history of overeating and you've beaten yourself up over it, the theme that keeps running through this program, please stop. This is not your fault. There's 4 major issues that have caused this sensation of overeating and over-consuming and eating and still going back for more and more and more. The first one is exactly that. It's like our life is this bowl of self-filling soup. The access to foods that we have now is absolutely insane. There are options everywhere. There are options all the time, and there are now home delivery services of your favorite foods. You know, even really 5 years ago, if you really had to have that certain food, you had to get dressed and get in your car and drive to the store, And we've all been there. I know that this happens. We've all been there. You would drive to the store and to get that food, to get that fix. Nowadays, within 15 minutes, you can have it delivered to your door. There's coffee shops on every corner. Really calorie dense, nutrient poor foods are so cheap and so affordable now. The availability is a major issue. The second major issue is the fact that these foods are so calorie dense and nutrient poor. When your body is hungry, that's your body asking for nutrients. It's not your body asking for a soda or a burger or fries or a pizza. It's asking for nutrients. So when we stock up on nutrients, this is why my crowd out the bad philosophy works so well, that we've talked about in this program and in this membership so often. Because when you fuel your body with the good stuff, it doesn't want the bad stuff. It doesn't crave the bad stuff. Have you ever been in the position where you've gone and you've had a takeaway, you've gone through the drive-through, you've done that and you've eaten it, and then 15 minutes later you're hungry again, you feel like, hang on, where did that all go? That's because there is no nutrient density to this food. So your body is going to then keep asking for more. It's going to keep craving more because what it's looking for is nutrients. If you're getting high caloric intake but zero nutrient value, there's going to be issues. The third problem, artificial sweeteners. They are absolutely addictive. Aspartame, especially, be careful. They are very, very good at giving these things different names and trying to get them reclassified as natural sweeteners and natural flavors. They're still, it's just high fructose corn syrup, it's just aspartame, it's just those terrible, terrible sweeteners that give you the feeling that you're having something sweet and satisfying and filling, but the brain doesn't recognize that you've consumed those foods. They actually switch off that part of the brain that recognizes that the food has been consumed. So you literally stay as hungry as you were before you consume the food. And then the fourth reason that's such a big problem, and we're going to be talking about this throughout the program, is those weight loss hormones, those hunger hormones, leptin and ghrelin. Let's get into those in a bit more depth right now. So these two hormones are super important in the weight loss puzzle. Leptin and ghrelin are affectionately known as the weight loss hormones or the hunger hormones, and they are absolutely fascinating. So to keep it really simple at the outset, ghrelin is your true hunger hormone. It's the hormone that signals to your brain that you are hungry and that you need to eat. So if there's too much ghrelin, you'll eat more than you need. Leptin is your satiety hormone or your starvation hormone. It's the hormone that tells your brain that you are full and you don't need to eat anymore. So too little leptin and you'll never feel full. And I say too little, but this is only part of the story, as we'll get into now. But you can see where I'm heading here. An acidic, inflammatory, standard Western diet of gluten and sugar and processed foods and toxins and so on leads to a situation very quickly where you've got too much ghrelin, you need to eat, and too little leptin, you never feel full. You can see how that is going to make things a little bit tricky. So let's jump in and look at them in a little bit more depth. So ghrelin is a hormone that's made in the stomach and it tends to rise before meals and fall after meals. It's known as the only appetite stimulating hormone in humans. Ghrelin is one of the main contributors in giving people that insatiable cravings, the munchies, if you like, to eat unhealthy snacks. In addition, ghrelin is released directly in response to stress. So this is why so many people have this tendency to eat when they're stressed. And here's another link with cortisol. You're going to hear cortisol come up throughout this program. By perpetuating cortisol release, ghrelin contributes to weight by then returning the favour and stimulating the release of more cortisol, ultimately giving you this unbeatable and unrelenting desire to eat and overeat. So when I said at the start, if you feel like you're always struggling with cravings, you feel like you've got no willpower, this is just one of the reasons why I want you to know that this is absolutely not your fault. When your body and your brain are wired this way, you just can't control or direct it. We've been wired this way. And the more ghrelin that you have in your system, the hungrier you become. You'll find yourself with cravings and you can't seem to stay away from the fridge after dinner. This is due to the elevated ghrelin levels. And the hard fact is that ghrelin works directly on the hunger center of your brain by activating the brain's reward response when you eat highly addictive, sweet and processed and chemical laden foods, you actually get a reward response. So again, it's a vicious cycle. Now, leptin, on the other hand, is known as the starvation hormone because it notifies your brain when you've had enough food and your energy levels are sufficient. So because the body produces leptin based on your body fat percentage, leptin is actually generated in the fat cells. Weight gain actually causes your leptin levels to increase, and weight loss will cause your leptin levels to decrease. So you would think, more fat, more leptin, this is fantastic. No, this isn't the case because leptin resistance exists. Leptin was only actually discovered in 1994, and you can imagine the glee when researchers discover that there's a hormone that can tell people that they're full, the medical community falling off their collective chairs and trying to rub their hands together to create a synthetic version. You can just give people a leptin pill and they'll be fine. And a big space race kicked off because that, let's face it, would have been a multi-billion-dollar industry. However, research soon discovered that it isn't actually the amount of leptin in your body that is regulating this message of fullness, because you can have all the leptin in the world floating around in your body. Your brain has to register it. The easy button disappeared. The problem isn't a leptin shortage. The problem is the leptin signaling. It's being blocked at the brain by insulin. So if you have got lots of excess weight, you've got a ton of leptin in your system, but you've also got tons of extra insulin, and so the leptin is being blocked. With impaired leptin signaling, your brain simply doesn't get the message to stop eating. It doesn't realize you've got enough energy. Your brain thinks you are constantly starving, and it's driving you to eat more and more and more. The two primary causes of leptin resistance, like we just said, elevated insulin. We're going to address that abundantly in part 2 of this program, and inflammation in your hypothalamus. And inflammation is going to be addressed very, very quickly as well. The other thing is, when there's low leptin levels reaching your brain, low leptin signaling, this actually encourages you to be sedentary as well. If you think about it from an evolutionary perspective, if your body is not receiving the signal that there is enough energy, that there is enough food, that you've eaten enough, it's going to encourage you not to burn energy. So it's going to keep you sedentary, and it's going to encourage you to overeat. Okay? Leptin and ghrelin. You can see again why calories in versus calories out is sort of irrelevant when you look at the weight loss equation through the lens of these hormones. If you are constantly hungry and you are never full, it's going to be hard. There is also a third hormone that I want to touch on called adiponectin. This isn't talked about enough in the weight and hormone discussion, but this is literally the hormone that tells your body to switch on the fat burning, to use fat for fuel. If there is fat on your body that you want to get rid of, this is the hormone for you. So there's many studies that have shown that the more adiponectin you have in your bloodstream, the more you are going to access fat as your primary energy source. Low levels of adiponectin are absolutely in the research associated with a higher incidence of obesity. In the same way that the more fat you have on your body, the more leptin you have, the more cortisol and the more insulin you have, annoyingly, the less adiponectin you have, and this is why it can be hard to sustainably lose fat when you first start out, and why so many people get seduced into calories in versus calories out. The other connection here is when your body is inflamed, when there's at least one of the main 5 markers of inflammation in your body, your levels of adiponectin go down considerably. So we're going to get this kick started for you in section 2 of the program, but for now, let's just summarize. Eating an acidic, inflammatory, toxic, standard Western diet, the foods you know are not good for you are going to raise your insulin levels. They're going to cause insulin resistance. They're going to block leptin. They're going to increase cortisol. They're going to increase ghrelin. It's a vicious cycle. If you're always hungry and you're never full, you're so much more likely to pick the wrong foods. It's going to encourage you to remain sedentary. It's going to kickstart more insulin resistance, and it's going to lower your adiponectin levels. And what's compounding this? Inflammation and acidity. We've got to get on top of this, and again, we're going to address all of this quick smart in section 2. Let's move on to the next video now.